Hi, I'm Rick, Chief Experience Officer at YOONO. Welcome to another video in our How to Hire Well series. Today I'm going to be joined by Rob, our Head of Growth, and today we're going to be talking about background screening, how long it's no longer fit for purpose.
Hi.
Hey. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Good, yeah. No, joined today by Rob, our Head of Growth at YOONO. I'll let you do a little intro for yourself, Rob.
Yeah. So joined at Head of Growth at YOONO about, I think I'm 2 months in now. Background before this has been largely focused around digital transformation from startups, scale-ups. I've had the good fortune of working with a variety of companies during that journey. And now focused on the go-to-market strategy and looking at ways in which YOONO can enable better hiring decisions or indeed any personnel insight that we can come across in the markets.
Nice, cool, right. Let's get right into it. So the current state of background checks, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
How are background checks now almost no longer fit for purpose when it comes to our current state of the world?
They're not fit. I think there's definitely room for improvement. I suppose is the honest answer, right? So we're still always going to need your KYC in certain sectors.
Sure.
We're going to need that right for work. We're going to need those background checks. But there is a level where the identity isn't enough. That we really need to go into the integrity of the individual, right?
Absolutely.
And what we can see beyond that. And the data set is massive. It's impossible to view that all on yourself. So enabling that better hiring decision by going a little bit further beyond and understanding that individual on a more base level, I think is super important. Hopefully, that's where our platform comes in.
Yeah. I guess it's easy for companies to get drawn into the, right, we've done the box ticking exercise, we've done this check, we've done this check, that's us covered and that's fine. But yeah, when it comes to what reputational and cultural risks are still left on the table, that's completely different, right?
Yeah, I think it's one thing, you've got to see almost this era of screening tools. It's not just about detraction and getting rid of people. It's actually about highlighting the people that are best in that shortlisting thing.
Yeah.
And making sure they rise to the top prominently.
Yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to, I guess, higher growth or higher trust environments, whether that be through startups wanting to make sure that their third hire is the right person who's going to really drive growth for the business, or whether it's finance where you need to make sure that the person coming in has experience working in regulated sectors, has the right kind of background. Like, how important is it that nowadays you have to look further than just a CV?
So where do you want to start? I think it really depends on how far you kind of want to go with it. You know, from one end of the spectrum, you've got anything that might be just social media checks. You get a bit of a background on an individual, all the way through to insightful media report that really might highlight some pretty bad red flags. I mean, we're just in like testing, we can't go through it here, but like there's been some pretty interesting ones that we've seen in trial cases that have been like, wow, there's no way you would have found that any other way. So kind of having that spectrum of being able to be informed and see what those red flags are, and for the organization to have that flexibility of knowing what's important to them to make that decision, I think is pretty important. Aside from some of that as well, just thinking about it, you know, sure, you've got KYC, we've kind of talked about the standards.
Sure.
The role of references, though. Like that's massively kind of started to kind of diminish as the sector has got more and more regulated around that. You know, the amount you're getting from a reference now is like they work there. And if
that's all they can give, right?
Like, certainly all that is worth legally the trouble and hassle of doing. It's that insight in its own right? No. So how do you again find a way to build up that reference of the individual? How do you get a true perspective of the personal, cultural, or the authenticity of that individual in a kind of serious way? Yeah,
for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the product. So, you know, it's not just another background check. When it comes to some of the conversations you're having naturally with people who are interested in the product, so whether it be head of risk, head of talent acquisition, like these individuals who you're chatting with now, like what sort of conversations are they having with you? Are there any objections or anything that really stands out that seems to be prevalent in the conversations?
So look, when there's kind of three core themes, right? I would say when we're having those conversations, and there's varying, depends on sector and so on. But if we start with one, there's that idea of reputational risk. So there's that idea of I don't want something that's going to harm my brand. I don't want something that's going to harm me. I want to make sure and preserve what we've got and preserve what we're building. And that compound effect of getting a bad hire and getting it wrong can have a real impact.
Yeah.
The other side to it, I suppose, is more based around the authenticity. So we've talked about this idea before, this digital footprint that's impossible to scale, manage, or anything like that. So actually getting that understood and under control and checking that with the individual and the facts you have on a bit of paper, whether that's a CV, a LinkedIn address, whatever it is, super important. Does that check in with the ATS and the individual that you're interviewing here, there and then? And then finally, recruitment, as much as we may try and put science and data behind it, it's not about a platform or AI. It's about the person that you are building that relationship with. All we're trying to do is add a bit of science to that. We're helping that cultural fit. We're helping that personal gut, and giving you the confidence to move forward with it.
Yeah,
I mean, your team is pretty good. How did you use? Did you use YOONO as part of your own hiring journey here?
Of course. I mean, I had the luxury of hiring people that I'd previously worked with, which is obviously another way of ensuring that the people coming into your team you've got a good experience of working with. But when it comes to hiring people externally, absolutely. Like for building that rapport with somebody at face value, where as soon as they come into the process, you've got a bit more that you know about them. It's in no way trying to exclude anyone from the process. It's sometimes giving you the ability to drill into areas that they maybe have forgotten about themselves, or maybe didn't see as important to put forward for the role. But actually, when you've seen that as something secondary as part of their skill set or experience, it actually provides so much more value that, it almost builds a better picture day one.
See, I love that. I love those kind of niche conversations that kind of bounce off. So some of the use cases outside of the ones we've kind of talked about so far, the ones that have been really interesting. So we've had recruiters in a similar view that might be shortlisting candidates and getting a vibe for them, but their CV doesn't represent how good that candidate is on paper.
Yeah.
So just being able to do the YOONO report, get an idea, add a few more bullet points down, super good. Well, I don't know if you know this. We're using one recruiter does a lot of language-based placements. So they're using the metadata tags from the social search and from some of the images for the location to give proof against the fluency of the individual, which again is really cool in its own right. There's another one as well, which is more on the medical side. That's part of the trial at the moment. So that's highly technical, highly competent roles.
Yeah.
That's journal insights, checking that on CV. They've been referenced as being involved in a paper.
Yeah.
That's really easy to check on platforms. So, part of the joy so far has been actually seeing what happens in real world scenarios when we get this thing out there.
Yeah. And one of the biggest challenges as well that we see is talking again about that authenticity point that you're referencing. A lot of the hiring managers that we're talking to are talking about almost the lack of value from a CV nowadays because of everybody's CV, everybody's almost presence like looking contrived because they've been using tooling, they've been generalizing it, they've been sending them out on the fly, they've been creating a CV and a job post, merging them together and just firing it out for a high number of roles. So naturally you end up getting a lot of CVs that look and sound the same.
Yeah.
So it's almost becoming a point of differentiation.
Yeah. The odds now are so skewed in the candidate's favor now. You've now gone into a market where the tooling has become so democratized in terms of high tech, right?
Yeah.
That a candidate has so much available at their fingertips to make sure they can literally, through the use of other brands, like I won't necessarily name them for fear of sponsoring them as part of this process, that can take that CV, they can get it nice and designed, and get it structured. They'll make sure they've got the talking points right using another language model like a Claude or a ChatGPT to make sure they're on point. They can even draft in the job description. Bring that in, make sure that they're aligning, they've got their talking points set up in the right way. And then they might use something like an enhanced CV or something along those lines, parse that through, and they'll even get an ATS screening.
Yeah.
So they'll get a feel straight away about whether or not they're going to pass that ATS process. So now you are getting, before you've even spoken to an individual, a piece of paper that does nothing else but is optimized for passing that first barrier.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a race to the bottom, right?
Yeah, it's completely devaluing the importance of self-worth in the individual. because we are just looking for the quickest answer to a yes. And then we'll worry about whether we're wasting our time or not. In the meantime, good candidates that might have taken time looking at the CV, might have been like really focused on getting stuff through, and as a result, may have missed something.
Yeah.
They risk of being ignored.
Yeah. So character, conduct, credibility, as you say, things that can be determined by references, but also in some sense like intangibles.
Yeah.
How does YOONO make those intangible, let's say, elements more actionable?
I think it's coming back to the fact that YOONO is currently not positioned as a decisioning product, right? It is very much on the remit of ensuring that we are giving as much credible, authentic information to that individual so they can actually understand the decision that needs to be made. I think there's something quite powerful of recruiters have been around the game for ages. If you're an in-house recruiter, you could have been around for a long time. You have the best view of the culture of that place that you could possibly have before a tool tells you what it's going to be. A recruiter will know their client and they'll know the brief, and they may have even worked on that brief to get it to a point where it is. Our job is just to help, manage the gut feeling. It's just to take that insight that you may have, that spark when you've eventually got to that candidate, and either bring that further forward in the recruitment process so we can highlight what's there, or go, you're right, or spend a bit more time validating this. It doesn't matter whether you've worked with them in the past or anything like that. It's just about making sure you're covering your reputation, building the best possible team.
Yeah, no, it's a really good way of putting it. And the last thing that we would want to be seeing to be doing is almost diminishing the recruiter's human element and the fact that they bring so much value to that process already.
Like there's no one that a recruiter specifically will have such insight external to different sectors. So even if they're niche, they have such insight across different clients, different firms that might be recruiting, same role, same region. They will have a broader view of who's out there, who works right, and so on. They may have even gone through a sizing process. So, part of the tooling that we've seen used in our trial process has been around helping that sizing process for that fit go a little bit faster. So by actually getting that shortlist together, using the non-biased tools and the kind of more sensitive picks of data, so removing photos, names, location, ages, you get very detailed profiles for individuals, like full personas that you can present to a client and go, someone like that, and not just someone like that as like, there's a good skill set and we want someone that has this code knowledge or has got some previous marketing.
It actually allows them to picture that person in their business.
Yeah, as a fully fleshed individual. I think that's really powerful.
So YOONO's approach challenges that due diligence is time consuming.
Yeah.
In what ways are we helping companies scale not only faster, but also smarter?
Yeah, look, I think there's a point where traditional due diligence just simply doesn't work in the format we know it. And we are now at that precipice to come on about what we were talking about earlier, that idea that the candidate is smarter, can produce more content, can do so. There's too much out there. A human cannot process that as part of it. So if you were to enable a proper due diligence process, if you were to go out your way and really scrutinize not even all of the available data, but know which data source to go after, which is itself a miracle depending on the role. And then identify the ones that are relevant, review those, scrutinize them, and give some kind of view on it, an opinion. You'd be there for days. You just literally, in fact, for some of the first prototypes we had on the platform, we had this notion of like, there's all the stats, there's all our sources, and there's a big number over there with days. Now, the danger that we fell into, and we're learning as part of this, is that notion of, look, we've saved you 10 days. It's not accurate.
No.
Because they never would have done it.
They wouldn't have spent the 10 days in the first place.
But that doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's just quantifying how impossible that job was in the first place. So it's not about, placing due diligence or even speeding it up. It's just enabling it to fit in a process so it doesn't feel bureaucratic. And it actually feels like a doable process that you can bring in to a recruitment process. that is existing that doesn't cause a load of headache
and standardizes it, right?
and actually allows people to form an opinion on data they just otherwise wouldn't have seen. Like, and knowing that every hire has gone through that process, everyone has seen that and been able to view that candidate's profile in the right way, I think really adds value.
So one thing that we've both seen when it comes to like conversations that we've been having, just in general, is we've talked about more AI tooling coming into the space, especially for recruitment. And like we've seen real positive reactions for how that can improve, make them more efficient. But we've also seen challenges, right? We've seen people.
How surprised have you been about that?
I don't know. Like I can see it. I can see why. I think it's really easy for any AI tool not to get caught up in the, I guess, macro picture of sort of fear. Right?
I think that's fair. I think general concern in the market around AI is more based around what if I do it wrong. It's kind of not. I have this habit of simplifying it to spell check.
Yeah.
Because it enables. As someone who's dyslexic, right, I could not have done my legal degree without spell check. Despite that, I've still got 3 spelling mistakes in my dissertation title. But like that AI tooling for me is just that new frontier, right? It's enabling people that couldn't reason, couldn't give logic, couldn't give structure in the same way.
Yeah.
I suppose the danger now is it is a bit more of a consuming beast, and there's the fear, right, of getting it wrong. The fear of using the tool in the wrong way, that fear of exposure.
Yeah.
That kind of.
I think there's the fear of exposure, but there's also the fear of replacement.
Yeah.
And I think they compound together. I think naturally the fear mongering aspect of it is, oh, don't put personal data into this because it could be consumed by the model. It could inherently then start to introduce bias in the wrong ways, and it could have a whole collection of I guess consequences off the back of it. But then also naturally the people who are using the product or will go on to use the products in the AI space, like there's a look, we all want to go to work and do a good job. We have a principle, and we want to make sure that the human touch that we provide and the value that we provide, our skill set, is appreciated. And as soon as there's something that challenges that, it's really easy to have a natural bias against it, rather than considering like how it can be used to enhance the workflow that you already have.
Yeah, you nailed it, right? Like the context of the AI usage is so important to the software adoption. You know, actually integrating AI into a flow there is a job that's already been satisfying and you're enhancing that process makes for good AI adoption. And to say that as an organization you don't have an AI strategy now is dumb and negligent, or borderline a lie, because all of your tooling in the organization is already adopting it, whether that's HubSpot, your ATS, your Google search. There's so much. What have you seen? Like, are there particular kind of frameworks when it comes to AI adoption and kind of product that we look to emulate? Or
well, I just think there's a macro point really where I don't think people realize how much it's actually affecting the day-to-day life already without even realizing. And I think, you point before around people wanting to influence the AI overview in Google, but in terms of machine learning, in terms of how AI adoption is a buzzword now, but in terms of practices for machine learning being involved in products for the past 10 to 15 years, like that influence has driven so much of your modern thinking, that to think that now because AI is a buzzword and it's therefore inherently part of a product is different is again kind of contrived in a way. Like you look at Netflix, you look at the way that it customizes the artwork on all the cover art, the way that it creates you a preset and drives you, not only the algorithm driving you to specific pieces of content, but you driving the algorithm. Like they're almost things that you don't even realize that exist. And go on.
It's like good special effects in films.
Like
as soon as you see a special effect, like it's ridiculous. It's the worst. And the old movies that you go back to and you see crappy 3D models come through are the ones that I can't believe I used to get soaked into this, right? But when you don't see the special effects, so you don't see the highlights, and you're just left with this awe,
Yeah.
That's where it works best. And AI, in my opinion, when it comes to workflow, in a slightly less dramatic format, is like definitely the same way, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't notice it, where it just becomes streamlined and it's just enabling to do the thing you were doing in the first place better. That's the win.
Yeah. And I think the businesses, to your point, that are doing it well now, when they're talking about AI's integration into their product, I think you phrased it really well. It's the jobs to be done and the pain points that already exist just being answered in a more efficient way and giving people the tooling to, just being more efficient with their process, as opposed to thinking about, I mean, we've all seen it as well, where you've got a tool that exists now that's clearly to commit to appeasing shareholders of bolted an AI feature. But like when it's there as a core part of the process, it completely changes things.
Yeah, there was that mad gold rush, wasn't there? Anything with AI in its title just was there for investment and kind of got it there. No value to product, no adoption. Ultimately, won't be here tomorrow. The stuff that adopted it or has built it in or integrated and done stuff, that'll be the stuff that does have staying power.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to, I think the businesses that are doing it well and the businesses who will continue to do it well, I think the way that we'll go is we'll probably become more and more transparent with the capability, the AI, the platform, the models, and it almost being clearer to users as it becomes more common lexicon that AI modeling is something that's just going to become part of our day-to-day lives.
Yeah.
That the companies that are doing it in a more ethical way are the ones that are going to be, it's not, I think there is still a perception that it's a bit of a Wild West.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to like the hallucination of like data, when it comes to, AI taking two particular points and joining the dots between them, and then almost that creating bias in itself. Like there's definitely that perception, and the more that it becomes a part of our day-to-day process, the more those ethical companies and the way they describe it will win.
We took like a question I had earlier in the week. It was around someone that we were talking to in the recruitment field, and it was entirely based around the fact, look, we had the demo, really impressed. I feel like I'm a little bit behind the times with AI adoption. I don't understand the tool set. What do I do? How do I go out there? What's the right way for me to go out and learn? And they'd gone out and they'd done a search, and there was loads of recruitment-focused AI tools on Coursera. And I think in an odd way, it's the wrong way to approach it. Like the way in which you can use generative AI models are in itself like self-taught. You can go out there and play, and as long as you adopt some kind of basic rules whereby you don't share anything you wouldn't want to be out there, so you can train on data that you wouldn't be there, and where you are using like personal data, whether it's CVs or something like that, you're doing that in a controlled, regulated environment, hopefully by people that have hired some of the best legal talent they can muster and some of the best engineers they can muster to ensure that that model is like privatized and like fair and safe and doesn't do anything odd,
and applies the current legal concerns and aligns with future ambitions from a legal perspective as well.
And it's about that yin and yang. If you can go out there and actually learn by actually applying AI into your business in a safe way where you're doing anything that's non-risky, and seeing where that leads, what a wonderful place to be. What a way that you can integrate it into all your workflows, regardless of whether that's in recruitment, finance, fundraising, due diligence, whatever it might be. But then to have tools like like hubs, like things where are dedicated frameworks, right? Where you're like, okay, that's our thing. We're going to make sure you're safe when you do that process. Wonderful kind of safeguard to have, I think, to make sure that you're adopting in a safe and practical way. You've obviously been around the platform for way longer. Like, were you surprised? Because I know I was when I started doing the reports and stuff and realizing what was there. The amount of information and the depth it went to. I think it even found my MySpace account at one point. Like,
nobody needs to see that.
No one needs to see that. Thank God it didn't still play music and have my top 6 or 7 on. But like you've been here since day one, more or less, right? So you were surprised?
Yeah, and I think like as we've continued to develop the platform, as we've continued to evolve how we're leveraging the most modern models to make sure that our matching prompts and our whole search mechanic finds more and more information that's not only relevant to the individual from almost a first degree perspective, but secondary, and what that almost cohesive network starts to look like around an individual. What are those touch points that really start to create a picture around them? Like at that point, you start to realize, okay, well, we're finding that much information here that it almost becomes a challenge in itself to then play that back to the user.
It's really interesting. Like, one of the hardest challenges I think we've had so far is making the executive summary a summary.
Yeah.
Just because it's been the amount of information that comes through in the relevancy, like that top bit of the report where you're getting all that information through, it's good stuff and it's referenced and it's got its source. You almost don't want to go too far with it. Like, you want to keep it like all the core stuff there and make sure the good material is being surfaced.
That's it, right? I think almost the methodology that we're striving for is progressive disclosure. So we're giving somebody the ability to, at a snapshot view, see the real key highlights about an individual, taking everything that we've found, summarize it into a really digestible way that somebody who does just want that executive summary to understand, okay, well, maybe I've got a short period of time to review 5 to 10 people who might be right to move forward to interview or right to move forward to the next stage of a role. Then I just want to know, what are the core facts? How can I start to create a picture on each one of these people to know who to prioritize? Not to make necessarily decisions on, but to know who to prioritize. And for us, with that executive summary, it's really important that we're making sure that we're taking what is, like we've said, a huge amount of data, really distilling it, but then also trying to add an element of YOONO-ness, for want of a better word, where we're starting to give somebody a picture from the data as to anything around cultural fit, anything around leadership responsibilities, anything there that almost is implied from the data, that really starts to enrich what somebody gets from the product.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that people will say during the recruitment process from client side, when you're actually involved, it's going to be that they're time poor.
Yeah.
There's too many candidates, there's too much stuff to do. So who is worthy of that investment in time? And that's what struck me, when I've been doing recruitment here, to have that as a quick summary to go, okay, that one's what I want to know a bit more about that individual and what they're about. So good to know that that's where my time should go. And that's where I should focus.
Wicked. No, thank you, mate. Really cool conversation. And I think it's awesome to start sharing more about the product. It's awesome to start sharing more about our thinking and how people are starting to perceive it as well. So
yeah, absolutely. It's nice to service some of the conversations we have with the product team, the user research team, the sales guys, and talking about this more publicly. This has been a long time coming to kind of make sure that we've got that information, and we're now at a point where we're ready to go and really start shouting about it. So it's really exciting time all around.
Awesome.
Thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, bud.